I'm exhausted.
Is it because of the school board?
I can't get over what happened. Elections have consequences.
I know. I'm concerned about our democracy.
Think of the alternative. Look at the changes that are already happening in other states. School boards are banning books. This is a fascist practice.
We're teetering on the brink of indoctrination instead of education. So much is at stake. We can already feel the freedoms we took for granted eroding.
Especially for women, the disenfranchised, people of color, and minorities.
When we lose our basic rights, we lose our dignity. This is not progress. We have to do better. We can do better.
It happens over a course of time, when people aren't paying attention. Instead of doing something about it, everyone disengages. They stop voting, they stop paying attention, they stop showing up. It's the people's responsibility to protect and nurture democracy, to strive to make it better.
That is why we need others to volunteer and get involved. We need more people to attend political meetings and rallies.
It's important for everyone to watch what's going on, to differentiate between truth and lies, and to be aware of the changes that are being made, if not for our sake, for future generations.
I wonder what kind of country we will leave our children if more people don't wake up and fight for our democracy.
I know. The freedom to vote is under attack, and once your vote doesn't count, there is no democracy. You lose everything. One day you realize that your voice has no value. You have no say in what's happening in your country, and you have no control over your life.
What do we do about all the people who don't seem to care?
Well, we keep fighting. We keep talking to people. We keep engaging with others in our community. We keep voting and volunteering and donating to leaders that care and protect our rights, our freedoms, and our country. For future generations, we can and we have to do this together.
Productions presents Defenders of Democracy 02-20-2022. WEISER, GRISWOLD, Young. Featuring Colorado Attorney General Phil WEISER, Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, Colorado State Treasurer Dave Young, and starring tonight, Colorado's own singer-songwriter Brandon Sipes, plus spoken word artist Kaya Cockrell, and a special welcome message from First Vice Chair of the Colorado Democratic Party, Howard Cho. And as always, fun filmed by the Rocks Production Players. And now, my friends, welcome to Defenders of Democracy.
And now, please welcome First Vice Chair of the Colorado Democratic Party, Howard Cho.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. I'm so glad to have you here with us. I want to give a tremendous thanks and shout out to Rocks Production for always allowing me to be a part of this. I'm Howard Cho. I'm First Vice Chair of the Colorado Democratic Party, and I'm honored and excited on behalf of all Democrats and like-minded people who share our values all across the state. I thank each and every one of you for joining us today. We have a great treat in store for you this afternoon in Attorney General Phil WEISER, Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, and State Treasurer Dave Young. And you will be able to ask some questions. Make sure you type in the questions in the Q&A at the bottom panel of your Zoom, not the chat. I repeat, not the chat, and our team will get those questions to our special guest. All right, I'm gonna need another favor. I'm gonna need you to have your smartphone ready and watch out for our animated Defenders of Democracy videos for ways to contribute and volunteer. Aim your smartphone at the QR codes. When the video comes up, tap the link that comes up, and that should take you to the donation or volunteer page. Or you can take a picture so that you will have that link web address so you can enter that link into your browser. Also, this is a surprise. Watch in the chat window because we had some last-minute anonymous donors pledge a challenge to match each of our 3 amazing elected guests, so your contributions are doubled when you donate using the links we post today. This is a very important election to us all, and we need to hold the line and to continue to make the progress defending our rights and freedoms. We need to elect more Democrats who share our values more now than ever, and that doesn't happen without the help of each and every one of you. So let's all work together to make sure we succeed in protecting not just our lives and freedoms, but for those who cannot for themselves. Let's all become defenders of democracy. Thank you so much for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colorado's own singer-songwriter, Brandon Sipes.
I'll put on a smile for you if you let go of the fake one that I see. The sun will still shine through even on the cloudiest day of the week. I'll write 1,000 letters if you read past what the words have to say. Speaking from the heart sometimes is the least obvious way. Winter's on its way. Let's embrace the warmth of today. I'm calling your bluff. Your eyes will never let you lie. Falling in love every time you turn to say goodbye. Wake you just before the dawn. A few dreams will release you from sleep. The most beautiful sunrises seem to be the hardest ones to keep. Winter's on its way. Let's embrace the warmth of today. I'm calling your bluff. Time you turn to say goodbye. Winter's on its way. Let's embrace the warmth of today. I'm calling your bluff. Your eyes will never let you lie. Falling in love every time you turn to say goodbye.
Money management, hoo boy. Manage it poorly, and there's big problems. Manage it well, and you have quiet success. Dave Young, Colorado's treasurer, has been leading a quiet success story for the people of Colorado since 2019.
Dave, a former math and technology teacher, applies his savvy money skills, common sense, and empathy for the most vulnerable in our society to his role as Colorado's Chief Financial Officer.
As state treasurer, Dave has advocated for legislation that centers on economic justice, including college savings accounts, small business loan funding, and the Colorado Secure Savings Program. So what is the Colorado Secure Savings Program? The program provides small business employees the opportunity to establish Roth-type savings plans to build retirement wealth. It's definitely a big, nonpartisan, win-win project.
Dave implemented the Climber Loan Fund, which provides loans to Colorado businesses with fewer than 100 employees. This is good for our economy. Under Dave's leadership, the previously neglected and underfunded Colorado State Employees Pension Plan, PARA, continues to show double-digit improvement in its portfolio.
Dave participated with the governor and Colorado legislators on the Build Back Better tour to learn firsthand how Coloradans prefer to use the $3.8 billion in funds provided to our state. He's seeking wise use of that money.
Dave advocates financial literacy for all Colorado citizens. He believes everyone should have an equal chance to save, invest, and give back to our economy. One example, WEISER, not only helps school teachers increase their money management knowledge for their own lives, but also provides them with teaching tools for students.
Then we have the Great Colorado Payback. Have you checked it out? The state's unclaimed fund system needed an updated and automated program for citizens to access any personal funds that might be sitting in the state treasury. In Dave Young's first year in office, the improvements that Dave championed paid a record 28,835 claims worth over $47 million. That money belongs to Colorado citizens. Could some of it be yours? Have you checked?
Dave's wise stewardship of your taxpayer dollars continues with a fiscally responsible approach that benefits all citizens of Colorado. Let's keep Dave in office. He's a rock star treasurer. Please give a warm welcome to Colorado State Treasurer Dave Young.
Hello, everyone, and it's so great to see you with us today. I'm Dave Young, your Colorado State Treasurer. I am a defender of democracy, and I want to thank you for participating today because that means you're a defender of democracy as well. Thanks to the great Howard Cho, and thanks to Sandy, Tracy, Brandon, and the great team at Rocks Productions for putting this on today. Fabulous work, folks. You know, everything I do as treasurer, I do for economic justice, to improve the financial health of Coloradans that are hardworking just like you. But I want to tell you, I got into politics because my sister got me into politics. She's intellectually and developmentally disabled, and years ago was struggling to get the services that she needed, essential services, to keep her alive. And it was a real struggle for our family. I fought that from the outside for many years. I discovered there were lots of families struggling to get these essential services as well. And so when the opportunity came for me to step in and run for office, I thought I would do that so that I could fight for this work on the inside. Along the way, in the State House race that I won, became eventually a member of the Joint Budget Committee, and eventually in 2018 became your state treasurer. But let me tell you about myself. I am a hard-fired, Weld County Democrat. I'm a lifelong educator and a union leader. That's right, you heard it, I said it. And I've won 4 hard-fought races with that set of credentials. But I'm glad you're here today because I'm asking for your help as I work to win my 5th campaign. I'm dedicated to building a stronger economy, making significant investments in education, and ensuring that all Coloradans can retire with the dignity that they deserve. I am a defender of democracy, workplace democracy. I strongly stand with my union sisters and brothers who want to have their voices heard at the bargaining table and their experience and knowledge valued as they negotiate. I fully support their desire to be fully heard And I also fully support the public sector bargaining bill that's being considered for introduction this session of the legislature. In fact, when I was the president and bargaining spokesperson of the teachers union in Greeley, we faced some pretty tumultuous times, just like we are right now. Our teachers union stood strong for bargaining rights, and we were one of the first, not only in the state, but in the country, to implement consensus bargaining. Now that model is used by most school districts in the state that do engage in collective bargaining. And I have to tell you, when consensus bargaining, this kind of collective bargaining is done well, it's a great way to solve problems. And it's possible to conduct negotiations then in a mutually respectful way for the benefit of everyone. So let me talk about my education work. I have this vision that every child in Colorado can reach their full potential through the talented work of our teachers and education professionals in our public schools. In order to do that, they need a well-funded public school system. But everybody knows that school funding is in crisis, a $25 billion hole in our K-12 funding formulas for our public schools. Tabor is at the core of the problem, and I never miss a chance to push back on Tabor so that we can actually get the resources that we need so that every child in Colorado can be successful. I love my job as treasurer. I'm really good at it, and I have a great track record, as you heard, to prove it. You know, we manage the state's complex checkbook. And I know that sounds like something you do at home, and it is. The problem is we have lots of people who are writing checks and doing transactions within state government every day. And my team at the Treasury reconciles the checkbook every day to the penny. And here's the good news. Through this economic downturn caused by the pandemic, not one penny of taxpayer dollar has been lost. We've not only invested wisely and safely, but we've beat our benchmarks. And as you heard, we've set records with the Great Colorado Payback. Money and property that people have been detached from. And during this time of economic crisis, we've worked hard to get it back into the rightful owners here in the state of Colorado and across the country. I sit as one of 16 trustees on the PARA board. And while I'm not a spokesperson for PARA, I never miss an opportunity to let people know that I am a steadfast proponent and supporter of PARA. I started as a PARA member in 1975, and it's my honor to sit as a trustee as well. And you may have seen my recent editorial published in the Greeley Tribune in support of full funding for PARA as we move forward. And I do that because I believe that everybody in the state of Colorado should have a dignified and sustainable retirement. And this is why I am pushing so hard, not only to make sure PARA has success with its portfolio serving public school employees and other state employees across the state, but why we have launched the Great Colorado Secure Savings Program. There are 1 million people here in the state of Colorado that work in the private sector, 40% of our workforce in the private sector that don't have access to retirement savings at work. And as a result, they're not saving. We are establishing and will have a pilot project by October this year and fully launch in 2023, a program that allows, through payroll deduction, these employees to begin to save. It's an auto IRA opt-out program, and it's had great success in a few other states that are already implementing this. And we're recognized as a leader in the state, in the country, because of the work that we're doing to form multi-state partnerships to move this forward. And so we'll have PARA, public sector workers, sustainable in retirement, and private sector workers, sustainable in retirement. I want to lift everybody up to make sure that they have a bright future and a dignified retirement. You heard about the Climber program. That's fully launched. It's a $250 million small business loan program in the immediate to help us recover from this economic downturn that we've had. We're really focused on outreach to minority-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses, but it's open to every business. And so we're really excited to do this additional work beyond even the nuts and bolts in the Treasury. You know, I work hard every day to better the lives of all Coloradans. As you heard, love that work, and I want to continue to do it. That's why I'm running for re-election, but I can't do this without you. So please follow the links that you see in the chat, or go to daveyoungforcolorado.com to learn more about how you can help. Thanks so much for being a defender of democracy.
Now it's time for your questions for Treasurer Young.
Thanks so much for that, Treasurer Young. We're glad you're here today. When you mentioned this Colorado Secure Savings Program, that's meant for small businesses. Would it transfer from job to job with the employee?
Karen, that's a great question, and you're exactly right, it would. We've taken the burden off the employers. These accounts that people will have for saving are not tagged to the business. They're actually the property of the employee. So as they move from one job to the next, then they just pick up doing payroll deduction at the new job and continue to save. That's what we want. We want more savers, and this is really going to help them be consistent in their saving, which we know is the key thing for saving for retirement. Got to be consistent, and you got to let that compounding work for you.
Treasurer Young, Elsa asks a question in the chat. Do you believe that PARA must divest from fossil fuels?
Elsa, thanks for the question. I have been working very closely with my colleagues, my trustee colleagues on the PARA board, and listening very carefully to the voices around the state of Colorado. You heard I come from Weld County, and certainly there are members in Weld County that actually believe we should invest more in fossil fuels, not less. So it certainly is an interesting topic. What I'm studying closely right now is the fact that we need energy in this country. How it's developed is a question, but everybody needs energy in order to live their lives. And we are watching closely those energy companies, particularly fossil fuels, that are retooling themselves to be focused on renewable energy and other forms of energy that will be producing the energy that we need in the future. And so we want to be sure that we make that transition successfully. We know we have a ticking time clock on the climate, and that we want to do everything we can to save our environment, the world that we live in. But we also want to be sure that we're set to actually invest in those companies, those energy companies that are actually making that transition as well.
Secretary Young, can you tell us and the audience, Chris asks, what differentiates you from your opponent in this race?
Well, that's a great question. And, you know, my opponent is actually a person who ran for lieutenant governor before, didn't win, and he ran for other positions. He was a state representative. I served with him. But I have the experience and the track record that my opponent doesn't have. I've spent 3 years, as you've seen in the lead up, really working to streamline the work in the office, be successful through tough economic times. And we've been highly successful producing great results for the state of Colorado. I am, as you heard, a member of PARA. I am a steadfast proponent and stalwart defender of PARA because I've been involved in PARA since 1975. And I want to be sure that we keep PARA strong so that our public employees can have a sustainable retirement. And I have a focus that is focused on Main Street and on people in their everyday lives. I care about those kitchen table economics, and I think that that's what you need to have in your treasurer's office, is somebody that understands everyday person's lives and the struggles that they have. And this is why I'm a defender of workplace democracy as well.
Treasurer Young, Charlie from Brighton inquires, in the American Rescue Plan, we got a lot of money in Colorado. What are you doing to make sure that's handled responsibly?
Hey, Charlie, thanks for that. We actually had an interesting event happen around Memorial Day in 2021. $3.8 billion came in to the Colorado Treasury from the American Rescue Plan Act. And my thanks to the Democratic Congress delegation here in Colorado and Congress in general for sensing the need and doing the work to make sure that we had the American Rescue Plan Act money available. Since that money came in, and actually even before that money came in, the governor and I did a 19-stop virtual listening tour around the state. This was the end of March, beginning of April. We had legislative leaders along with us in each area of the state, and we listened carefully to what proponents and advocates across the state thought we should do with one-time only money to make smart investments to move our state forward. We collected a huge amount of input from that. The legislature then took all of that information and in the interim began to work in committees. There were 3 themes that came out. One was certainly economic recovery, really focused on these small businesses and workforce development. The second theme was affordable housing, a little different depending on what part of the state you're in, but it was a consistent theme. And the third and equally important was mental health, behavioral health, heard across the state. And so the legislature has focused their energy on that. I've been supportive of their work. And now that we're in session, those bills are starting to emerge from their work and are going to be introduced soon so that we can actually begin to appropriate and spend this money. Some money was appropriated initially, but the rest is going to be appropriated soon. It needs to be appropriated by 2024 and expended by 2026. And so I'm watching very carefully how we do this so that we make smart investments with this. And really am supportive of the work that the entire 100 members of the legislature are doing to make sure we make good strategic investments.
We have one last question for you. Katie is a longtime para member, and she says the other side is always saying that the sky is falling. Can you give para members something to say in pushback to that?
Well, that's a theme that we've heard before, and sometimes it's just ginned up in the media to attract attention. The good news is that actually para has been around since before Social Security, and I'm not sure many people know that. And we've weathered a lot of storms since 1931 as an organization and continue to do so. We've had our ups and downs, but with the passage of Senate Bill 18-200, that was a bill that was run in the legislature in 2018, we've got ourselves on a sustainable pathway to full funding again so that by 2048, para will be fully funded. It was in the year 2000. Some bad decisions were made by the governor's office, the state legislature at that point, Republican controlled, that actually caused the funding to decrease dramatically. But I think we're on track. And like I said before, and you heard in the little video before, we've had double-digit performance out of our portfolio. We know we have to make adjustments along the way to make sure that we have the kinds of funding available so that everybody has their defined benefit in a sustainable way when they're ready to retire. So we'll make adjustments along the way to make sure we stay on that pathway, but we are on a good trajectory now and on path to be fully funded by that time.
Excellent. Thank you for defending democracy, and thank you for being here today.
I am really excited to have been here. Thanks so much to everybody for participating.
Hey everybody, Hope here. I'm a defender of democracy, and I hope you will join me and be one too. They call me Hope because that's my superpower. It takes a lot of hope to keep up our defenses against people who refuse to make things fair, seem to be against everything, and never for anything that actually helps the people. So I hope you will join me in supporting one of our other defenders of democracy, our own Colorado State Treasurer, Dave Young. He has a great track record from his first term in office, working for fiscal responsibility, economic literacy for all Coloradoans, and treasury policies that are designed for achieving economic justice. So we want to keep him in office. That's our best hope. Oh, and speaking of hope, I hope that you too will become a defender of democracy. Stay engaged, people. Don't let them take another member of our team in the next election. And you'd best believe me when I tell you they are gonna try. I hope you'll jump right in here now and start donating whatever you can to help Dave Young get reelected. It takes money to win. And let me tell you why every little bit you can do is so important. All that big money and that big craziness going on the right is looking to take every office they can in the next election. They don't want economic justice or fiscal responsibility. They just want power. So, I figure, let's all do what we can. Maybe you can give a little bit and maybe even volunteer. You can help Dave stay on the Defenders of Democracy team. I hope you agree. So come on now, just point your smartphone at this QR code and then tap the link. Or you could take a picture of this slide so you'll have me to look at. No, I mean, so you will have the web address to type into your browser and donate. Come on, people. Let's all be defenders of democracy. You know you want to. See you later. Hope out.
What we shall overcome. Our beautiful America. She has brought ideals of justice and liberty as we have taught to take a stand against bigotry and defend what is defined as opportune land, slowly sewing together each strand of person that makes America truthful. She is a beacon of discovery, of healing and recovery. America holds you in the palm of her hand and, with a torch in another, exclaims, "Let freedom ring in this country like no other." Screams, "Let freedom mean welcoming the other." Claims that freedom mean difference despite coexistence. Shouts, "Let freedom aim at raising proper government." Mouths, "We need transformations and transitions." We need a way to vote with the citizens mentioned. Let our state be determined by the excited who await to see a face they can relate to. And let us challenge our flaws and negotiate leaders properly with a system dedicated to its citizens called democracy. Our country shall hold while in this form. Now we should know the power of enduring the storm comes from leaders of our nation demonstrating integrity, clarifying the dissonance in search of harmonies and melodies that create our country's grace note. It equates the quality of life, meaning a take at equality for race, and our new record-breaking faces that took oath to be best for our nation with their hands on their hearts at inauguration. As we stare in contemplation of what such a new beginning holds, history is ever-changing, never remaining still, as Amanda Gorman articulated our climb on such a hill, and we march on through this country that we share as we learn that being equal isn't the same as being fair, as we constantly adapt and overcome, because I see a bright future where we fought for progress and we've won, where we learn about the issues that we shall overcome. And freedom rings we scream it enthusiastically from our lungs. Although malicious wills exist and a current gap of equality may be true, we as a nation will persist, now that the future is blue.
Please welcome back Brandon Sipes.
With the weight of the world on my shoulder, I'm the one who will stay here until the night is over. I'll never let you down, except to lift you up so much higher off the ground. 'Cause I could be a waste, I could be a beggar of your time. I could be a saint, I could be the best you'd ever find. If you could only see that side of me. I'm the one with the straight and narrow voice of conscience. I'm the one who will remain fervently conscious. We'll make it through somehow. We are already so much higher now. 'Cause I could be a waste, I could be a beggar of your time. Or I could be a saint, I could be the best you'd ever find. If you could only see that side of me I used to take the longest way around. I was always lost, but never found. Used to remember all of my dreams. I have always believed. You'd ever find. If you could only see that side of me.
When the founders decided to form a more perfect union, they had an ideal in mind that even they were unwilling or unable to achieve, a blueprint for a democracy that gave certain inalienable rights to all. And we've been striving to achieve that ideal since then. I like to think of democracy as a house that we're all working to build together. A house that needs to provide safety and shelter to everyone. The blueprint indicates it is designed to do that, but we have fallen short time and time again. People of color, the differently abled, the young and the old, the newly immigrated, those born here as dreamers, individuals of one gender, or those who identify with different genders than they were born with, or even no gender, those who love someone of their same gender, those who practice their own faith or no faith. The ideal of democracy is to provide equal protection for all. And lately we look at our home and we begin to see that even our land, our air, our water, all of these deserve protection too. The ideal contained in the blueprint says that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness should be afforded all, and that the leaders of this country should be accountable to the people, all of whom should be assured the right to vote, and that the government should be free of corruption and serve the people. A government of, by, and for the people. When I think of democracy as a house, it has to be a big house to encompass all of that, and has to belong to all of us. And that ideal is perhaps even more threatened now than it has ever been. When those in power seek to serve themselves through greed and corruption, to limit access to voting, to criminal justice, to marriage, to citizenship, to all of the freedoms we should all enjoy, then they are battering away at the walls we've already put in place. When citizens are not engaged and informed, they fall easy prey to lies and manipulation by those who would seek to serve their own interest. And if this goes on, the house, the ideal, the democracy will fall. The walls, the roof, the very structure of this ideal of democracy, this great house we are building, is the law. Some of these ideals, these laws, are already built, but the laws must be enforced against the battering of those who serve greed, corruption, dominance, prejudice, exclusion, and even promote insurrection to stay in power. When it comes to the law, everyone needs a good attorney.
In the state of Colorado, we have a people's attorney in Phil WEISER. As the son and grandson of Holocaust survivors, he brings a view of democracy and equality that can help us as we work for the ideal. As a defender of democracy, he serves to protect our greatest treasures, our children, our homes, our rights, our freedoms, for all of us, while we citizens continue to build the dream and make it real at last.
Rocks Productions is happy to present Colorado Attorney General Phil WEISER.
I am thrilled to be here, and man, oh man, that was a fabulous setup. Sandy, Rocks Productions, thank you for making it real and keeping it fun. We are about to celebrate President's Day. The ideal that was talked about is the core value of American history: freedom and opportunity and equal justice for all. That's personal to me. As was mentioned, my family is one of those immigrant stories. After surviving the Holocaust and being liberated by the US Army, my grandparents and my mom wanted to come to the United States of America because they believed in that commitment to freedom and opportunity. And here's what George Washington said, and this is made famous in Hamilton: "For happily the government of the United States, which gives bigotry no sanction, persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens, in giving it all occasions their effectual support." And he then had the following spirit: that everyone could sit safely under his or her own vine and fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. And he, in a beautiful ideal, said, "May God scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make all of us useful and everlasting happy." Lincoln, after this bitter Civil War, he kept that dream alive. And he said, "This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." And as he said in his second inaugural, "With malice towards none, with charity for all, and firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us finish the work of binding up our wounds and achieve a just and lasting peace with ourselves and others." And yes, as referenced, Dr. King said, we shall overcome. We have a project here that we must hold on to, for it is good. The project of justice, opportunity, and freedom for all. As your Attorney General, I'm the people's lawyer. I believe in this idea of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I'm here to protect people. I'm here to stand up against the forces that would prey on people. Take the opioid epidemic, for example. Those of you who watched Dope Sick or read The House of Pain, you know what the Sackler family did. Preyed on people. You know what the Purdue Pharma Company did. And McKinsey and others who joined them. We held them accountable. $400 million and counting, coming back to Colorado so we can have more drug treatment, drug recovery, education prevention from an epidemic that in the last year killed more people than it ever had before. In fact, more people died from drug overdoses in the last year than gun violence and car crashes combined. That's a crisis. And our criminal justice system has too many people who are not necessarily a threat to public safety, but are there in jail because they don't have drug treatment options. We're going to work on changing that. We're going to work on providing more support for people so that we help people live productive lives. And when people do prey on others, we're going to hold them accountable, whether it's those who compromise public safety or those who try to cheat our unemployment insurance fund or any other way that they would undermine our freedoms and opportunities, including those who'd hurt the integrity of our elections. We also need to make sure we protect our land, air, and water. It is fundamental to our way of life here in Colorado. And there's a right way and there's a wrong way to manage our water. And I'm committed to protecting our natural resources for our whole state. I'm committed to that work, the work of serving the people of Colorado based on the values of our democracy. And I will tell you, as you've been preaching, it's at stake in this year. There are forces of darkness. There are forces of deception, of division. And we, by being our best authentic selves, by doing the work of engaging people, letting people know what is happening, we can make sure people make informed decisions. That's how we win elections, by engaging people. That's the type of campaign I'm going to run. And I'm telling you, just like Dave told you, it's going to be harder this time. We know that from history. We know that from what happened in Virginia. And what I love about the spirit that you're all bringing is that's how we win, with people power. Last time there was $6 million from out-of-state corporate money came in to try to deceive and basically throw dirt on me, and it didn't work because we got people engaged. This type of engagement from this type of gathering fires me up. I really appreciate you. Would love a few questions before I got to hand over the baton.
Attorney General WEISER, thank you for being here today. ICO would like to know, what can we do to keep guns out of schools?
We have seen this scourge in Colorado of gun violence. First, I want to acknowledge that after Columbine, we created a program called Safe to Tell. Safe to Tell is so that when there are people who are bringing guns to school, we can get an early warning system about it, and we can take action. We also have a program that we worked hard. It's a red flag law. If someone is not responsible and is a significant risk to themselves or others, we can remove a firearm before tragedy strikes. And finally, we're pushing safe gun storage so that people lock up their firearms so they don't end up with kids bringing them to school. Gun violence is a public health challenge, and we need the same vigilance we've brought to car crashes and other public health challenges, asking how we do better and how we help save lives.
Sam from Sterling asks, you've established a new environmental crimes unit. Do you have any particular accomplishments you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so we've had to build from scratch, unfortunately, Sam. So it's a longer game, if you will. And what we've done so far is we've worked on getting the relevant laws in place so we can go after those who would harm our land, air, and water. And so we've set up this unit, and we are looking for opportunities to hold us accountable. We haven't taken any such actions yet, but we're going to be committed to that work. And so far, we've worked on getting the laws that will give us more enforcement tools. Thank you for noticing that work. And stay tuned as we have other work in that area that we're able to announce. But at this point, nothing I can say more than that.
Phil, Dan would like to know, how are you holding FEC United accountable for continuing to threaten the lives of government officials?
So I can't speak about ongoing investigations. What I can say is that we're going to be vigilant, and we are going to be responsive as much as we can to when these sorts of threats happening. It is a painful statement of the state of our democracy that we're having this conversation. The idea that people would threaten governmental officials thinking that's some legitimate political discourse, to take a phrase that now is a painful part of our vocabulary, is beyond the pale of what I ever thought I would see. And this is an important point the video captured, which is the threats posed by January 6th, they're not in the past. They are with us on a regular basis. And we need to make sure that we defend democracy. I love Sandy's point that I got to argue a case defending the principle, the will of the people shall be heard. I argued it at the US Supreme Court. In the last case, Justice Ginsburg, who was a mentor of mine, was able to hear. And we won unanimously. I'm committed to this basic proposition. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. It means the will of the people will be heard. It means you can't intimidate election officials or thwart the rule of law. And right now, I love Ghazala's earlier video. It's hanging in the balance. So we need defenders of democracy. Thank you all for being such core defenders.
Miranda would like you to address the allegations that have been made that your campaign has engaged in some inappropriate fundraising activities. How are you going to deal with that as you go forward with your campaign?
Go look at the Secretary of State's website. The Division of Elections wrote up a report explaining that the allegations are baseless and need to be dismissed. And unfortunately, to your point, I'm living in a world where people are going to make baseless allegations against me. And we saw it in the last campaign. And I need to get the facts out. And the way I'll deal with it is getting people like you all here as ambassadors. Let's get people looking at facts. If people are going to sling mud, we're going to basically find a way to call them on it in a smart, effective manner.
Elsa would like to know, what is your role in protecting and defending women's rights and the ability to have full access to health care in Colorado?
I continue to defend women's reproductive health care. What Justice Ginsburg said so powerfully at her confirmation hearing holds true today. If women can't control their reproductive health systems and are forced to build children against their will, they're not equal to men. Or as others have put it, if men were forced to bear a child, they would demand they had the right to control the reproductive health system. They wouldn't stand for any curtailment on the right to an abortion. Women shouldn't either. It is critical we protect abortion rights and reproductive health care. I'm doing that every chance I get at the Supreme Court, here in Colorado, fighting for a Reproductive Health Equity Act. We cannot be complacent. Women's rights and equal rights are core to my belief, to my commitment, and I will remain all in to protect them.
Tom wants to know whether you're interested in higher political office.
I got to get reelected, Tom. Right now, if I don't win this race, I'm going back to being teaching law students. And so my interest is in winning this campaign and in serving with integrity and with a passion for people. That's what's amazing about this job. I get to use the law as a tool for justice, to fight for people. And that is a privilege that I am so grateful for every day. I want it for 4 more years.
Attorney General, thank you for being here today and answering questions for us. We appreciate it.
You guys are all the best. Thank you for defending democracy. Appreciate all the support. It means a lot. Thank you.
Hey there, familia. This is E, your defender of democracy with the superpower equality. Our Colorado Attorney General, Phil WEISER, has been working hard to defend equality while in office and to preserve and protect our elections, our land, air, and water, and defending the rights of immigrants, criminal defendants, consumers, and more. So we hope that you can help keep him on the team by chipping in a few bucks to help re-elect Phil so he can continue representing the people of Colorado, our freedoms, resources, and especially our equality. Listen to E now. Fill around those couch cushions and check your pockets for some change and give him some love, won't you? Just use your smartphone camera to scan this QR code and tap the link that comes up so you can chip in a few bucks. Or take a picture of the screen so you'll have the web address and type it in your browser later. So come on, everyone, and join the defenders of democracy. We want all of you on our team.
Those of us who grew up during the Cold War know all about the doomsday clock. In the 60s and 70s, that countdown was about nuclear armament, and certainly that threat's never gone away. In the ensuing decades, however, other engines of self-destruction have become more predominant. A climate crisis unchecked by myopic greed, unregulated social media technology that erodes empathy, encourages bigotry and hatred, and advances sociopathy and disinformation daily. Putin's plans to decouple our united from our states, all made possible and even probable by the election in 2016 of a fascist, white supremacist, criminal sociopath, and would-be dictator. An entire political party in a two-party system has embraced that would-be dictator as a path to power, and now seeks to end democracy, with or without him, as they jockey for position in the new order. They've grown glutted on this new old road to riches, unchecked and seemingly impervious to accountability. The doomsday clock is now the fascist clock. It's ticked close to midnight before. The Depression fostered a toxic bloom of Nazi and fascist terrorist hate groups. After 2 world wars, the world witnessed American citizens being jailed or exiled for their votes. A legacy of relentless ethnic and racial injustice exposes a fault line of instability in this country, an underlying disparity among too many between the ideals embraced in our Constitution and the bigotry and inequality that continues to erupt into perverse public practice. But never in the modern era has democracy been so close to extinction in this country. And when democracy goes, so too will the world as we know it. Remember January 6, 2021. Remember it when Democrats ask you for money. Remember it when they ask you to volunteer. Remember it when you talk to your disengaged and exhausted friends and family. Remember it when you're tempted to make an excuse for not getting involved. Remember it when you vote. The threat isn't over. The doomsday clock is still ticking, more perilously close to striking midnight than ever. Our resolution for 2022 must be to win it, to defend every elected position we have, and to gain every other one we can.
Okay, once again, Colorado singer-songwriter Brandon Sipes.
Open eyes to morning light, burning up the room. Feel the world still in motion. I'll be up and running soon. Blowing back against the wind, holding on to yesterday, losing time at every moment that carries me away. Can I come where you're going? Is there room enough for two? 'Cause I'm so tired of living lonely. Can I spend some time with you? Reaching high above the clouds, I'm breathing in and out, standing strong with you by my side. My feet don't touch the ground. Can I come where you're going? Is there room enough for two? 'Cause I'm so tired of living lonely. Can I spend some time with you? so tired of living lonely. Well, can I share this life with you? With you.
2018 was a year of firsts for Colorado. We elected our first Democratic Secretary of State in over 60 years, and the first Democratic woman Secretary of State in our history. Jenna Griswold, a working-class Coloradan, got her first job the summer after 7th grade to help out, and saw a lot of families struggle. That inspired Jenna to be the first in her family to attend a 4-year college and then law school. After serving as a voter protection attorney for President Obama, the time came to return home to Colorado. Now, as the youngest statewide elected official, Jenna is a rising star in Colorado politics. In 2019, she worked to help pass a number of significant pieces of legislation. In 2020, our Secretary of State's office is the leading advocate in expanding mail ballots nationwide and has engaged with nearly all 50 states to help ensure election officials run safe and accessible elections.
Whether it's increasing access to ballot boxes or notary publics, Jenna continues to have firsts for business and elections, lowering business filing fees to just $1 in some cases, or lowering barriers to voting. And she created a special learning tool for anyone looking to start a nonprofit. She also created ballot tracks to follow your ballot through the entire voting process. 2021 was a year filled with news of election conspiracies, and Jenna was the first to prohibit costly and misleading fake election audits. The first to face an insider threat when a county election clerk who was trying to prove the big lie intentionally compromised voting equipment. That led to another first of removing that clerk and appointing an advisory committee to oversee elections. Jenna also launched a highly trained team of election security experts to protect our elections from disinformation and cyber attack. Jenna's first worked to ensure the previous election wasn't the last one where your vote counts.
Advocate, mentor, leader. Jenna Griswold, Colorado Secretary of State.
We're delighted to welcome Colorado's Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold.
Hello, everybody. Such a warm welcome. I really thank Rock Productions and everybody joining us today. I'm Jenna Griswold, Colorado Secretary of State, and we won a huge election in 2018. We worked hard. We flipped a seat against a very popular incumbent for the first time in 60 years since Eisenhower was president. And I became the first Democratic woman ever to serve in this position, the youngest Secretary of State in the nation, which I continue to be, and just the 10th woman to hold and be elected to statewide constitutional office. But more importantly, as soon as I got into office, I started to work to pass the largest democracy reform in the nation. So I worked with our legislature, and we were able to add more drop boxes, more polling centers. We passed automatic voter registration, parolee reenfranchisement, worked with the tribes to undo historical voter suppression. And you guys know me, I'm not afraid of special interests. I took them head on through campaign finance reform, shining light on dark money, banning foreign money. We passed lobbyist reform. That was in the first couple of months of my tenure as Secretary of State. And I thought that was going to be my legacy. But we all know what happened. A week after having our first presidential primary in 20 years, because we were a caucus state before 2020, I closed down the office, and we started to see elections across the nation really struggle. So Wisconsin had the first presidential primary during shutdown, and in Milwaukee alone, 180 voting locations were reduced just down to 5 because election workers were afraid to show up. And then we saw Georgia, and in Atlanta, Black voters waited in 7-hour-long lines to cast a ballot. And it was also raining on top of that. So we started to see these warning signs across the nation. And not only did I win this election for the first time in 60 years, I became the only Democratic Secretary of State in the nation from a vote by mail for all state. So I instructed the office we were going to do 2 things. Open up access as quickly as possible in the state of Colorado and help any state that wanted our help in the expansion of vote by mail. So overnight, I became the Oprah of drop boxes. You get a drop box, you get a drop box, you get a drop box. We increased drop boxes by 55%. We added more voting centers. I set up statewide ballot tracking to shine light on the lies coming from the White House on our election model. We rolled out new technology, text to cure. We doubled down on our outreach to Coloradans experiencing homelessness, our partnership with the tribes, all, by the way, suing President Trump and stopping him from using the Postal Service to suppress Colorado and American voters. 2 lawsuits, 2 successes to stop them. And meanwhile, we were working with states like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, states from across this nation, helping them think through how to expand vote by mail. And our success, it speaks for itself. Here in Colorado, we had more people cast a ballot in the middle of a pandemic than ever before in our state's history. For our work with the tribes, we saw an approximate 20% increase in tribal voting in just 2 years. Over 56% of Colorado voters tracked their ballot so they could see themselves that the ballot was sent and when it was processed. Over 11,000 people fixed their signature discrepancies, making sure their vote counted with our new technology, Text to Cure. And for the rest of the nation, I do believe we helped save American democracy. We expanded access to vote by mail in the middle of a pandemic to over 84% of American voters so that they could have their voices heard and choose the president of the United States. We had a great success in 2020, and that was followed by the worst attack on American democracy in recent time. Since 2021, we have seen over 30 bills to suppress the vote pass across the nation, 120 bills to subvert the vote. We've seen an uptick in vitriol in Chaffee County, just south of you guys. The county clerk works behind bulletproof glass. We're seeing death threats to secretaries of state, those of us brave enough to push back on the lies, stop the voter suppression. And we're seeing fake audits, insider threats, the worst attack since Reconstruction. And what I can say to you is I am there to do everything I can to protect our elections. I was the first Secretary of State in the nation to prohibit fake third-party audits. We already do the best bipartisan audits in the nation, so we shouldn't play this political theater. I took care of the first insider threat against when Tina Peters decided to compromise voting equipment. I decertified the equipment and asked my 2018 Republican opponent to oversee that election. And most recently, I've had to take action against a third county. And I'll tell you guys, we won this seat for the first time in 60 years because it's a difficult race. And now there's 4 Republicans running against me, including Tina Peters, the woman who compromised her voting system to prove the big lie, who's under criminal investigation, who was arrested last week and tried to kick a cop, who clapped on stage with a known militia group as they called for me to be hung, and who made her announcement on Monday that she was going to run against me on Steve Bannon's show. This is going to be a hard race. She's going to be able to raise a lot of money, but we have to win. The stakes are so high. She is unfit to be Secretary of State and a danger to democracy. So please, if you are able to donate, please consider donating $500, up to $1,250 to make sure Colorado's elections remain free and fair. I'll continue to do my job to make sure that every eligible voter, Republican, Democrat, and Independent alike, has access to safe and secure elections. And I'm planning on working hard with you guys to win this seat for the second time in a very, very long time. So a big thanks to everyone. You guys have been so great. Thank you to Rock's production. And I just look forward to working hard over the next year in winning this seat again.
Now it's time for your questions for Secretary Griswold.
Secretary Griswold, thank you for being here. I'll share Dan's thoughts, and I think we all share them, where Dan says, thank you for your courage. Please do not give up. You have been a beacon and a role model for leadership and service across the state or across the country. Elsa's question is about ranked choice voting. Do you support saving money in elections in Colorado by using RCV and thus avoiding runoff elections?
Well, good news. We actually passed a piece of legislation last year to allow ranked choice voting in municipal races. So that was passed into law, something that I worked with the legislature on. And this year, the legislature has to fund it. So we're asking the legislature to fund that build up, or to fund the development of ranked choice voting. And, you know, it's pretty exciting that Colorado still remains on the cutting edge.
Jude asks, is there any action, petition, etc. in the works to find Representative Boebert disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? Is there anything that people can do to encourage that or pursue that?
Well, under Colorado law, I cannot decertify the Congresswoman, so that would have to be litigated.
One of the innovations that you've done is the remote secretary or remote treasury. Hello, I'm stuttering on that, is a remote notary. That is a brilliant innovation that's long overdue. Do you have other initiatives that you're already planning for your second term?
Yes, there is a host of things, but I'll tell you a couple of the initiatives before we even get to second term, because I have a pretty big legislative package right now. So number one, we want to prohibit open carry within 100 feet of a polling center and drop box, because every Coloradan, regardless of their zip code, the color of their skin, or the amount of money in their bank account, deserves to be able to vote without fear of intimidation. We're working on a big piece of legislation to get at insider threats. We're also working to prevent the doxing and retaliation of election workers. Across the nation, over 1/3 of election workers report they've been scared to do their job, and 1/6 has been directly threatened. So we need to make sure those great Republican and Democratic civil servants can do their job with peace of mind. Along those lines, I have received tens of thousands of threats beginning in 2021 as Secretary of State, because I'm protecting our election system. And I need our legislature to pass a bill so I can have security. So I would love to have your guys' support on that. You know, when someone gets up in a crowd with John Eastman, who was the legal architect of the insurrection of the coup, with an organization aligned with militia, and calls for me to be hung, we need to take that really seriously. And it's up to the state of Colorado to protect their elected officials. This is an attack on democracy. And moreover, we can't have more barriers for women serving in office. Colorado has never had a woman governor. We've never had a woman U.S. senator. And I'll tell you, in December, a woman about my age came up to me and said, I really wanted to run for the U.S. House, but I can't because I have a younger kid and I see the threats you get. So I need your guys' help on demanding the Colorado legislature passes legislation to give me a security detail. We're also on the business side proposing to bring filing fees for the top 5 most used filings with my office, business filings, down to $1. We're setting up a mechanism where businesses experiencing business fraud, identity theft can also have a way to get their documentation and their business recognized, and a fake business also recognized and marked as fake without going to court. And then lastly, for all you business owners, I'm sure you've gotten a solicitation that says, hey, pay me $200 and I'll file your paperwork with the Secretary of State's office. And it looks really official. And it's trying to trick Colorado business owners, the majority of which are small business owners. We're going to make sure that it's really clear that that mailing is not from my office and that you actually do not have to pay your hard-earned money to a third party to file with my office. So before we even get to next year, there is so much we have to accomplish in the next couple of months in the Colorado legislature.
Aiden wonders whether you would consider advocating automatic universal voter registration. What are the pitfalls of such a situation?
Well, we have automatic voter registration. So we have AVR, and that's a piece of legislation that I ran in 2019. My office implemented in 2020. And in the middle of the pandemic, it registered 250,000 people. So I think that's a great program, not only to get new eligible people registered, but also to make sure that our voter rolls are as clean as possible so that those mail ballots go to the correct address, saving counties a lot of money. So we're working right now on trying to expand that to places that offer Medicaid to Coloradans, which is cutting edge. We're working with the federal administration. They need to make some decisions on their end, but I think that's the next frontier of really opening up voter registration. And so, you know, Colorado is #1 in the country for percentage of eligible people registered, hovering right over 90%.
Wow, that's impressive. When you have consulted with other secretaries of state, are they also concerned about their safety? And what can we do to provide safety and support for you?
They are. So secretaries of state across the nation have been threatened in an unprecedented way. I think the top 4 threatened are the Georgia Secretary of State, Michigan, Arizona, and myself. 3 of us are younger Democratic women. If you push against the lies in the voter suppression, if you take action to protect election infrastructures, you are being threatened. But I am one of the only secretaries of state without consistent security protection. So I think it's really imperative that the state of Colorado protects its elected officials, especially in this atmosphere, because these threats, you know, we take them serious. When you're in the middle of a national QAnon conspiracy, you have to take that seriously. But it's really important that the threats are a threat to democracy. They aim to try to make us scared, to intimidate us. They will not intimidate me, but we have to be smart. We have to take them seriously. And that's a piece of legislation I'm working on right now with the legislature and would love your guys' support.
Thank you for all you do, and thank you for being here. You're a rock star to us.
Well, I really appreciate it. This is like the best production, the best fundraisers around. I can't wait to see you guys in person. And thank you so much for all of your support on my policy and for donating to the campaign so that we can win again. So thank you so much. And let's save democracy once again in 2022.
Hi there. How's everybody doing? I'm Percy. I mean, that's what they call me because of my superpower. Want to know what my superpower is? Shh, don't tell anybody. It's persistence. Yes, persistence is a superpower. I'm proud to use that power on the Defenders of Democracy team because it takes persistence to have a free and fair democracy, to stay active and engaged, to be a part of it all, to defend our democracy. Now, let me tell you about another defender of democracy, Jenna Griswold. She has some of the same superpowers as me. She persisted, even against that guy who used to sit in the White House trying to poison people about the safety of mail-in ballots, the fairness of elections that include everyone, and the legitimacy of our elections themselves. She showed persistence, like me, Percy, the superhero of persistence. Okay, enough about me for a minute. How about you? Want to be a superhero too? You can be a defender of democracy right now. Start by aiming your phone like you were going to take a selfie for your Instagram page. But instead, keep the camera pointed at me and that funny looking QR code there. Focus on that code and a link will pop up. Tap the link and you can chip in to help Jenna Griswold to persist at defending our democracy. Or you could also just snap a picture of the screen so you'll have the web address to type into your browser. We hope you'll join the Defenders of Democracy today and persist at what we all worked so hard to achieve in the last few years, and what could so easily slip away if we don't remain persistent. So join us, give what you can, sign up, and be a defender of democracy.
In just a few short years, Donald Trump and his allies have significantly dismantled and corrupted our democratic principles, practices, and institutions. Because of this continuing threat, we must insist that our elected officials and public institutions be guided by the rule of law and democratic ideals. Now, more than ever, it is imperative that every one of us be defenders of democracy. Following the 2020 election, Trump and Republicans took several steps to overturn the results. Election officials were intimidated, 62 lawsuits were filed, and some states conducted redundant and often unwarranted recounts. In every instance, these efforts failed and Joe Biden's victory was confirmed. In another breathtaking revelation, we've learned that the Justice Department is investigating several Republican groups who falsified documents and submitted illegitimate slates of electors in the hope of overturning the election. The failed violent January 6th attack on the Capitol by Trump supporters, recently referred to as legitimate political discourse by the Republican Party, did not stop Republican legislatures from weaponizing the baseless election claims and passing laws that seek to restrict voting access. It is clear that Republicans will break the law, cheat, and re-implement Jim Crow tactics to gain and keep power. Think Colorado is immune to these attacks on democracy? Think again. Here are 3 examples that bring into question Colorado Republicans' commitment to democracy. First, 2/3 of the Colorado House GOP members voted to thank Republican Representative Ron Hanks and those who joined him at the January 6th insurrection. A majority voted to call into question whether Joe Biden was legitimately elected and urged the decertification of the 2020 election to reinstall Trump. Second, 3 Colorado Republican county clerks are under investigation for potential breach of security protocol involving election equipment. Finally, the conservative members of the Douglas County School Board have been accused of breaking Colorado's Sunshine Law, holding meetings and taking actions in secret, not following due process and the rule of law. These actions are happening in our own backyard. So, you say, somebody should do something. And you're right. We are that somebody. We, the people, must stand up against relentless lies and attacks on the rule of law. We, the people, must stand against voter suppression, hate, and violence. We, the people, must stand up against propaganda and social media misinformation. And we must stand up for those who do the right thing, even when it is hard. John Adams, who understood what it takes to be a defender of democracy, wrote, "There are only 2 creatures of value on the face of the earth, those with the commitment and those who require the commitment of others." Please, commit to being a defender of democracy. Colorado and our country need you.
Okay, everyone. If you haven't already, I hope we've convinced you to become a defender of democracy. We hope you will stay engaged, donate, and volunteer as much as you can. If you haven't already, start now by donating whatever you can to help these 3 defenders of democracy get re-elected in 2022. And if you have already donated, thank you. Maybe dig deep and see if you can even do a little more. Here's why every little bit you can do is so important. One thing those on the right are good at is raking up big piles of cash to try to take every office they can in the next election. And remember, they don't have any plans for legislating. They just want power. So, we have to hold on to every seat we have and work to gain new ones. And for that, we need your help. Just point your smartphone camera at any of these QR codes and then tap the link to sign up and donate. Or you can take a picture of this slide so you'll have all 3 web addresses and you can copy and paste them or type them into your browser window. Come on, everyone. Let's all be defenders of democracy.